Alright, so I got the flywheel kind of in place. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of thread locker on each of these bolts so that there's no chance of it coming out. Just doing a little tiny bit on each, nothing crazy. And I'm basically just putting it on the tips first, that way it gets in there right away and then starts threading in and gets to the rest of the threads. Makes sense to me at least. And this one didn't have any yet, I just put it in there so the flywheel wouldn't fall on me. A little bit in there. And then I'm gonna, before I use a wrench on it or anything, I'm just gonna thread them in by hand to make sure we have no issues here, so won't really show that, but I'm gonna snug them up first and then I'll... Okay, so actually I just did something else. I went ahead and put a screwdriver up in here, and it looks like it is holding it pretty good. It's basically held up against like the plate here, which if that dents a little, whatever. Alright, and not sure how well you can see it, but that's 100 foot-pounds. So we should be good. Alright, so now that I got the flywheel on, I'm going to spray it down with brake cleaner, get all that grease off of there. I'm going to do the same thing with the pressure plate here. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the clutch disc in there, pressure plate on there, and then use my bolts here. These are ARP bolts that I ordered. They were only like 16 bucks or so. This is the same for RB20, I believe, KAs as well, so should be good there. So I'm going to go ahead and spray it all off now and let it dry, and then I'll get the bolting on this. Since these are ARPs, they're going to have their own torque spec different from factory ones. So looks like for M10 we're going to be 50 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and set my torque wrench to 50 foot-pounds and then go ahead and get started putting this together. And then I got my pilot tool, or alignment tool, that came with the clutch kit. So gonna go ahead and get that in place and then put this pressure plate on and start bolting it up. I'm also going to use thread locker on all of these because you definitely don't want any of those coming loose and messing up a whole lot of things. I've seen videos or pictures of aftermath when that happens and your trans is basically junk. So I'm gonna go ahead and avoid that by using thread locker. Alright, so I got the pressure plate in there. Now I'm gonna go ahead, try and line up the pressure plate, or sorry, that was the clutch disc. This is the pressure plate here. Alright, so I got them all snugged up right now. I'm just gonna go ahead and start getting them ready to torque. Okay, so I went ahead and just snugged these up. I didn't feel comfortable going to full 50 because it felt like it was a bit much. I know the bolts could take it, but I'm not sure if this eBay flywheel could take that much torque in there. So, and then we got this going in and out nicely, so we should be good for when the transmission goes in. Then I'm probably going to call it a day for now, clean up, and then probably do the sliding the transmission in tomorrow, because I think I'm going to have to jack up the front of the engine a little bit so that it tilts backwards, because looking at the way it is right now, I'm not sure how easy it's going to be to get it in. And then I also do got to get rid of this automatic lever here, and now I'm kind of dirty, so I don't want to happen to the interior, so I think I'll just save the rest for tomorrow. But nonetheless, good progress here today. Got this part done, which is a big goal, to get that bushing out and get the new one in, yada yada. So we should be good. Should be on the way there. Alright, so I'm taking apart the interior to get apart the shifter, and from what I can see, there's 4 bolts around the outside of this thing. So I got those out and this thing still wasn't moving. So then I went up underneath and looked, and I saw another one protruding in the back, right back here. And you have to take off the back half of the center console off. There's just 4 screws, 2 on each side, and then 2 on the rear each side. In the front and the rear, there's 2 on each side. So, or 1 on each side, 2, you know, yeah. But so there's another one I got to take out right there, and looks like that will make this whole assembly come out. Alright, so I got the shifter stuff off here. I'm going to show you what I ended up having to do. There's 4 big 10 millimeters all the way around it, so I undid those, and then the thing still wasn't pulling up. I smacking it around, whatever, still wasn't coming up. So I went ahead and got a long flathead and pried underneath it. It was just stuck from being on there for almost 30 years. So it should come out now. It's gonna take a little bit of wiggling, so I'm gonna try not to scratch up the car, but yeah, should be good. And then here's what we got left over. We just got a hole there, just like a normal one. Got a couple of these plugs here. They're just going to go to nothing. They're for the automatic shifter, which is no big deal. And then I also went ahead and got the rubber boot there off of an S13. They're the same, so that'll bolt right in, so keep the exhaust gases and road noise out and everything like that. So we're in pretty good shape. I'm thinking of trying to fit the trans up now, so let's see how that goes. Alright, so one thing I was going to show you how to do, which I'm actually not going to now, I was going to show you how to change over the release bearing onto this little bracket here. And the reason I'm not going to is the one that I've got on here looks pretty new, feels good and everything like that. Then I went ahead and Googled the part number on the back. And this is a Koyo one, which is better than what this would be. This is from my eBay XTD clutch kit that I bought for the car. And this one probably won't last as long, even close, versus a Koyo one. So I'm actually going to keep this Koyo one, and that came with the transmission that I bought, since it still looks fairly new. Even looking at it like this, it's still pretty much the same. The transmission was in a swap previously, so that's probably why it's newer, because somebody had already changed it. So I'm going to just go ahead and leave this one as it is. There's other videos to show you how to do this stuff without a press, which is what I was going to show you, but there's really no reason for me to do that since this is a good bearing here, and I'm going to go ahead and just reuse it. Alright, here's what a throw-up bearing looks like once it's on the car, or on the transmission. You can see the little clips there actually end up going over top of the fork, and then I'll actually pull the fork out here in a second to show you. But just so you can see, because it's kind of tricky if you've never done it before, how to get it lined up. This one's on there now fine, but if we go ahead and pull her off, I'll show you here in a second. Okay, so here's actually what it looks like on the back. I've got 2 transmissions here, 2 RB21s. So you can see right there, it basically slides on and holds it there, and then from there, when the fork slides, it does its thing there. That's really all there is to it. Pretty simple, but it works. This one goes up into there like that. So yeah, if it's a little tricky to get on, make sure you get both sides on, otherwise you're gonna have a bad time once you put the transmission up and realize that clip popped off or something. Your clutch fork isn't going to do what it needs to do anymore. So, and you can't get to it without taking the transmission off, so make sure you get that taken care of. But just, yeah, easier to look so you can see what you're looking at there. There. Okay, so I just tried to put the transmission in and realized that the motor had tilted forward a little bit. So what I went ahead and did is I put a jack underneath the front and put it on the, looks like the idler pulley on the front, and just jacked it up. It's not a whole lot, just jacked it up in the front so that the back end would go down a couple inches, because that's really all I needed. I tried getting it up, but the transmission was like maybe an inch or two from going in, and I had already hit the top trans tunnel. So this is what we're looking at right now. I'm basically kind of hugging up the front of it while jacking this up with my foot / free arm, and then I got it up as high as I could, and then realized the engine had to come back a little, which is gonna happen without the weight of the transmission in the back. It kind of tilts forward a little bit. My S13 had the same thing when I did the clutch. My Lexus had the same thing when I did the clutch. So pretty common thing, but just in case you haven't come across it, I'm not sure if I'll be able to film actually doing it, because I tried a little bit ago and I ended up just kicking the camera out of the way on accident. So I'm just gonna try it and go. But here, so you can see what I got. I got a jack underneath it. Got it real close up there because it's pretty tight space, and then I'm gonna give it a round too. Transmission is up and in there. Not mounted yet, but it's up, which was quite a battle. I don't know how well you could really see on camera, but it took a little bit out of me. Basically, what I was hanging up on is the ears for the starter, and I ended up just having to twist the transmission a little bit, and then it went up the extra 1/4 of an inch that I needed, and then we were good. Definitely wouldn't have been able to do it if I didn't jack up the front of the engine anyway, so you know that was still needed. And now that I have the transmission up there, I knew this was going to be a problem, but I wasn't sure that I didn't know that every single bolt was going to be a problem. So the bell housing on the manual is a little bit thicker here. So you see this bolt. This is one of the bell housing bolts. Doesn't make it through. Top one doesn't make it through. So we're going to have to go ahead and get a couple of longer ones, which isn't a huge deal really. And then also on the bottom, the transmission isn't threaded like the automatic for the ones that hold that plate in. So I'm going to have to get some nuts, but it should be long enough for those. Or the ones down towards the bottom. I'll double check. Some of these were long enough when I checked down under the car. So I'm going to have to run to a hardware store, just get something with the same thread pitch. It's a little bit longer. It's not a huge deal, but something I'm going to have to do. I knew it was coming. I would have liked to have bought a whole set, but they're like $50 or something crazy like that, and it seems a bit excessive for what it is. So I'm just going to go to the hardware store, get some for a couple bucks. Alright, so I went ahead and got a couple of the bolts I'm going to be needing. Some of the ones, there's like maybe 2. Yeah, there's like 2 of them that I could reuse that was already here. But the rest of these I just went to my local hardware store. The thread pitch was M10 by 1.5, and I also got the slave cylinder bolting down bolts because those were missing as well. So yeah, this should work out fine, but we'll see how it goes. And here I've just kind of got the drive shaft. There's an S13 drive shaft as well as an S13 clutch pedal, and both should fit fine. The clutch pedal, I'm told, will fit with a little bit of work, maybe some trimming or something along those lines, so I'll see once I get to that point, but these both had a little bit of rust on them. This is the extension I'm using for the top 2 bell housing bolts. I'm using 3 extensions, probably about 2.5, 3 feet of extensions. Wobble socket there, or swivel, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, a jointed one there. And then the socket size, these are 17s, but these are parts, they're like hardware store bolts I bought, so you know your sizes, if you have OEM, they're going to be 14s. But yes, for that one there, that silver one you can see right there, and then the one next to it, it's got them up from underneath, and you can, there's enough room with the transmission hanging down that you can get to where they're at by hand, and then you can spin them. So you know, the trans just kind of hanging there. I don't have the mount on there right now, but I'm gonna go ahead and fit that here shortly now that I got all the bolts in. And another tip for the top starter one is I did the same thing, those extensions, but minus one of them, and I fed it right through this area here, and you can feed it over there while watching over here with that same setup, and then you can tighten it up there. So that helped a lot, because I was trying to do it originally with a little ratcheting wrench, and it wasn't going to work. There was barely enough room back there, so using the long extension like that worked great, so I recommend doing that. Okay, and then for the neutral park switch, or whatever, neutral override, whatever you want to call it, I just went ahead and made this with a couple of female connectors, and I just used the same wire that was in that loom. I would have used the same plug, but I thought I'd try this, make it look a little cleaner. And also that trans, in case I sell it, someone might want those plugs, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm going to go ahead and just put these in. They should plug right in. They're just, if you look at the plug itself on the harness, it's just basically the same thing inside of this plug. So that's what I'm going to just plug in there, one on each side, and that should take care of that, at least for now. Eventually, I will probably cut these, put a relay on it so I can go off of the clutch switch, like press it properly, you know, to turn it on, just for safety reasons, really. So, yeah, but this is basically what I made, so it's all you should need if that's all you want. All right, and that's what it looks like in there. They just plugged in. There's really nothing to it. But I left enough wire there in the loops so that if I want to, I can go ahead and connect the clutch switch and, you know, do it more or less properly. But this will get you by if that's all you care about. Alright, so we're kind of on the home stretch here. Right now I'm at the point I'm going to go ahead and mount the clutch pedal assembly. And if you look in the firewall right there, there's a plate there with a couple of nuts on it. So I'm assuming that's just going to come out, but I'm going to go ahead and take a look inside the car as well. And up inside here, you see the same thing there, and then right above it, that is the little chime box for the automatic that makes it beep when it goes in reverse. I'm sure it does other things for the automatic as well. But I'm going to go ahead and unplug that thing because from my understanding, from what I've read, when you do the swaps on these, if you put it in reverse, that thing's still going to beep. And I don't want that. I'm just going to unplug it, move it to the side. Well, initially I'll move it to the side just to make sure it's not necessary. I'm pretty sure it's not. I've seen some of the Australian forums and whatnot talking about just unplugging it. And another thing I'm going to do is cut this brake pedal. Obviously we don't need this whole part thing because it's going to interfere, so I'll probably cut it somewhere here. I'm going to basically look at my S13 over there and then see how wide it is, measure it, and then cut it that way. I'll probably just use a hacksaw for it because I don't know that I want to use a grinder with a bunch of sparks inside the car.